Hey guys, welcome to Dark Expeditions. I'm Brandon, and today we're coming to you from Dayton, Washington, and we're going to be talking about the KKK in Washington State. A lot of people don't know that the KKK were here in Washington State. You won't really find it in schools being taught to you, but I'm here to lay out the facts and present what's given to us through online research and through books. Thank you. Okay, guys, so right here, I got a bunch of notes laid out about the KKK that I did with research. I'm going to go over them with you. So my first point of research was from historylink.org, where I found an essay from 2019, and it basically lays out the whole premise of the KKK in general, like the first and second and third wave. So the first KKK was founded in 1865 in Pulaski, Tennessee, and their first Grand Wizard was former Confederate general plus slave trader Nathan Bedford Forrest. Their motive was to thwart the government efforts to help newly freed slaves. Their main tactics against the newly freed slaves was terror by beatings, arson, rape, and lynchings. So by the 1870s, federal troops had suppressed the KKK, and apparently they just stopped. That's what they say with the first wave, and in my general belief, and especially after this research, it did not stop. But the second KKK wave came to existence in 1915 thanks to William Joseph Simmons being inspired by a super racist film called The Birth of a Nation by D.W. Griffith. It actually quotes that he was inspired by that. On Thanksgiving Day, Simmons gathered 15 like-minded white men and chartered a bus to Stone Mountain, where apparently Simmons burned a cross, and then the KKK of the 20th century was born. In 1920, Edward Young Clark and Mary Elizabeth Tyler signed Simmons to their operations and transformed their company into the Department of Propagation for the Klan. They trained several recruiters and sent them out to other states. And so that's why it spread out so quickly, is because they were trained to talk about the Klan and recruit people, and then they sent them out. For members, it was a $10 membership fee. And by 1921, they had more than 700,000 members. The Klan outfit itself cost a member $6 back in the day. It's recorded that between 1910 and 1930, almost 1 million black Southerners moved up north from the South. And so, a bunch of stuff was going on. They had to get out of there. They came up north. And that's obviously going to cause some issues with white people who don't like them. The Klan not only demonized black people, but also immigrants, Asians, Mexicans, Catholics, Jews, and anything not white. And historylink.org, in the essay, it mentions Washington Territory remained largely untouched by Civil War and unsullied by the Reconstruction Klan era. Well, that's not true, because during the whole time, there was still all these racial crimes going on. There were still people who were associated with the Klan, wanting to do Klan things. I'll show you guys how, what it was. Um, by 1920, Washington State had almost 7,000 black people, 17,000 Asians, and tons of immigrants still flooding in yearly. By 1922, Seattle had 2,000 members, and Walla Walla had just below 2,000 Klan members. So that just shows you right there, that was the first instances that it shows that Walla Walla actually had a KKK. July 21st, 1923, 50,000 KKK members gathered in Seattle to initiate 2,000 new members. August 21st, or August 25th of 1923, the Watchtower newspaper, that was the KKK's newspaper that they put out to everyone to inform their members of stuff going on, and also to push their political agendas, because they say that the second wave was more political. That's what they came out with, because a lot of newspapers didn't support the KKK, and so they had to make their own newspaper. And I found this. This is really cool. Kennewick, Washington, 1954, listed as a sundown town that consistently harassed colored people. And Kennewick itself was indicted for racial discrimination in 1963. So I know the dates really differ from there, but I just wanted to get you guys a laydown of what it shows. And I wanted to also show you guys some more stuff that is underlying, and I feel like ties should tie into it because it's such a big impact in history that is not talked about. So I'll get back to you on that. And yeah, thank you. All right, guys. So before we go to Walla Walla and talk about the racial crimes there, I actually wanted to bring you to another piece of KKK here in Dayton. So here on this main street right here, this is where the Dayton Days 1922 parade was, and this is where 500 KKK men were dressed up all in attire, marching down, and they marched all the way up the back of the hill of Dayton and lit a big old cross with kerosene and sawdust. It's just crazy to think about this right here. Like, to see that nowadays would be really intimidating and terrifying, really. Um, just the presence of that. But in the Dayton's newspaper, they talked about how they were a bunch of good men who didn't harm anyone, and they had a good reputation here in Dayton. So, yeah, it really just goes to show it's kind of crazy. But yeah, that's what was here. We're gonna try to walk up the hill and see what else we can find. All right, guys. So right now we are at a possible spot for where they could have came and burned the kerosene cross. Um, we were trying to just follow up the hill and see where they could have gone after walking a whole parade, you know. And sorry, I'm switching so that the wind doesn't bother the mic. But this is probably the most um, possible spot for them to burn it and walk up after a parade. I see a field right here. It's empty right now. Um, to the other side of me, we got the water tank holding a bunch of water. I'll show that too. And the only other place that's a bigger hill than this would be behind the water, all the way over there. And I don't think they walked up that. Me and E-Man discussed it, and it's not likely. But if they did, props to them, I guess. I don't know, but it's probably right here. Yeah, let's get a move on. Hey guys, so right now we traveled back to Walla Walla, Washington, and we are here at the Mountain View Cemetery, as you can see. I brought you here because way before the Klan was ever here in Walla Walla, and actually a year before the first wave of the KKK was actually started, there was a really bad racial crime here. And, you know, obviously it's going to happen all the time, and they're not going to put it in the newspaper. So this is what I found. So back in 1864, a tall, thick-lipped Negro known as Slim Jim was found on Tuesday hanging to a tree about 3/4 of a mile east of town. He has been known in the community as a thief, and several petty larcenies have been traced to him. And so I brought you here because this is where he was found hanging on the morning by the citizens. I do not know the exact location of the tree, but it was the famous lynching tree here in Walla Walla, and it was said to be here. If I were to guess, you know, probably somewhere over here, but it probably wasn't. According to Dick Bogle, Slim Jim was sleeping with about 15 other black men in his barber shop when he was violently abducted by a heavily armed group. The statesman insisted that only 4 men had been executed. However, an eyewitness who traveled to Portland reported seeing 15 lynchings in Walla Walla. In another story about the executions, the statesman made a joke of the hanging of the hard ER and word Jim. In July, a black farmer named Green got into an altercation with the white man, during which the white man's forearm was lacerated. Green fled his farm, but was found hanging the next morning. So you can see, when it comes to a colored person doing something to a white person, it's very severe. But they're not going to talk about the times where they did it to them mainly. So yeah, this is the place where Slim Jim was found hanging, and you heard it. He was violently abducted from Dick Bogle's barbershop, and Dick Bogle was another colored man. He was a black man who had a barbershop here, and that was one of the only occupations they were allowed to have back in the day, because they were good at doing hair, and towns needed a barber. So that was Dick Bogle, and he allowed black people to stay in the back of his shop, if they needed a place to stay, because Washington Territory didn't allow black people to settle here. So yeah, we're gonna go into another story here in Walla Walla about an abduction, and this one gets a little bit crazier. I mean, it's all crazy, but this one just really bothers me a lot. But let's get into it. Thank you. All right, guys. So right now we are downtown Walla Walla, in the alley between Rose Street and Main Street. I take you here because right here, and later on here, sorry, let me get back to my notes. In 1895, a little bit later on in the timeline, um, Walla Walla Gazette dated June 15th, 1895, a section titled "A Dose of Tar and Feathers." Last night, a masked body of about 20 men took Joseph Fasadi and Robbie Allen, his Negro wife and former mistress, from their rooms in the alley between Main and Rose Street, and applied a liberal coat of tar and feathers to them both. So when I read about that first, it was in the Pioneer book, or Portrait of a Western Town book, for Walla Walla. It explained more how the Italian guy, he had to go to Portland to work and get some money up, while they kept his Negro wife here chained up to a bed for a whole week until she was actually let go. And when they were taken out of their apartment somewhere in this alley, they were taken to the countryside, beaten up, and then tarred and feathered. So you got to imagine that. That's pretty crazy how they're going to take you out of your apartment, tar and feather you, and you have to go to Portland to work to try to make money so you can come get your wife out, because they're keeping her chained up. And the whole time, apparently, she was yelling at them, saying how she's going to sue them because she knows who did it, but no one ever got charged. That was 20 masked men in 1895. So I kind of linked that with the racial crimes, and then, going along with the KKK. I'm not saying exactly it was them, but it's around the same, thing. So it's just really crazy. But yeah, let's get another shot of the alley. This is where it was. All right, guys. So this is going to be the end of the first episode I do on the Klan. Also, other racial crimes that I find, I will post to this playlist. I want to thank you guys for coming along with me and E-Man. This was a good learning experience, and I hope you guys go out and learn some more about your own, local places. So yeah, thank you.